Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you going? Do you have something to say? Do you have an eloquent speech to bestow upon us all that will make us cry in our place of listening?
No.
I don't want to assume people are sitting down. People may be standing while they listen to this. Laying down, perhaps. AC, is this
walking, running? Who knows?
Running, other activities?
All sorts of positions available to listen to this in.
Rachel said it. So we are the YumYumPodcast, and we are a Babylon 5 rewatch podcast. To be specific, we're a sci-fi TV show rewatch because we have covered Star Trek in the past. We are currently going through Babylon 5, but either way, we are spoiling it. We are getting into the details of what we're discussing today, which is an episode of Season 2 of Babylon 5. And of course, Yum Yum is an iconic phrase said in Star Trek Discovery, a phrase, a saying, a moment that we witnessed with our eyes. We all got the chance to see it multiple times. I personally made sure on IMDb to change the thumbnail to that episode to her saying yum yum. So you can thank me specifically for that choice because I was the hero. Somebody had to step up to the plate and correct the mistake that was the Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2 thumbnail on IMDb. And I'm not going to take any awards for it. I'm a humble hero. I will just settle for talking about things on the podcast through a yum yum prism because we love that line so much that we had to name ourselves after it, and we had to give the podcast some yum yum flavoring, such as asking who in each given episode of a thing we watch, specifically about Babylon 5 episodes, would have said yum yum if given the opportunity. Who has YYE, Rachel, yum yum energy in the long Twilight Struggle?
Nobody jumps to mind because this episode's
a lot
rather dreary at its peak. Like at its peak, it's dreary, and at the bottom, it's completely depressing.
Yes.
But I'm gonna go with one of the Narn at the bar when they get into the fight.
Wow. You're not even gonna say Drawl. Drawl in that big booming voice. Sheridan, my friend, I am Drawl. Yum yum. He definitely has YYE. In fact, he has so much energy that he could power an entire nation. That's how much energy that Drawl has. And a close contender for me, second place, Lord Reefer. Especially when he was given
Reefer always has it.
But especially when he was doing the whole, come on, Londo, destiny awaits. He has that real woo energy. But as stated, we are talking about an important episode of Babylon 5, so that means that we have to read out the DVD description for this. What does the DVD of this have to say about the long Twilight Struggle, which is
about to answer that.
Which is episode 20 of season 2. We're nearing the end. We've got 2 episodes after this, and then we're done with season 2. So, to answer that long-awaited question of the DVD summary, here we are. A final bloody battle determines the outcomes of the Centauri-Narn conflict and signals an even greater threat to all civilization.
Then there is no hope. There's always hope. At least that's what I tell myself when I awaken in the middle of the night and the only sound I can hear is the beating of my own desperate heart.
Walk us through. What has it been like to watch the long Twilight Struggle?
It is so essential for Babylon 5. It's so essential. And on that first watch, I knew that it was important, but each time I rewatch it, I have a deeper appreciation for how much this episode means.
Yeah.
And how well crafted it is. Like, everything in this episode feels just right, which makes it one of the best of the series.
Yes. Whenever I put this on with newcomers, when I put the DVD in and we see the episodes and the thumbnails, and I see the long Twilight Struggle sitting there, and it's right after another episode, and, it's just, oh, look, a series of episodes. And since it isn't the season finale, there isn't that level of the other person thinking, oh, this one's going to be a big, big deal. Because it's just another episode of Babylon 5.
It creeps up on you.
And so I have to play an incredible poker face every time I whack on Babylon 5 for newbies, because the long Twilight Struggle is a masterpiece.
You let me know that it was a big boy, though.
It's
you
yum
let
yum.
me know that it was.
It's yum yum, people. It's perfect. It is, as you said,
You're meant to wait until the end.
No, sorry, got right here, right now. Yum yum.
Blow your load. Why
Top
don't you?
3 Babylon 5 episodes for sure. But yeah, this is a monumental episode. I just remember I watched it, and one of the things I've come to realize over the years is there are some episodes of television, the big game changers, where you watch it and you go, what? I didn't expect that to happen. For instance, spoilers for the Orville Season 2, people, but in the Orville, the robot character, Isaac, he has a twist and a turn reveal in which his race of people are in fact evil assholes, and it's a double-parter, and it's this whole bing bang zoom. Wow, I didn't expect that to happen, right? You know those type of episodes.
Yeah.
There's many of them. I've come to realize that the long Twilight Struggle was not that for me. It was, here we go.
The opposite.
Here we go. It's finally happening, because, yes, there was the momentary shock of, wow, they've ended the Narn War. It's only just started, it feels like. And wow, Londo's damned himself this early in the show. Like, properly, he is fucking damned to hell. And numerous other things, right? But it was a payoff to all of this stuff that's been culminating since episode 1. So it didn't really surprise me. Well, with something like the Orville, for instance, obviously there's little clues here and there, but that one comes as a big, whoa, what a sudden left turn. I didn't expect this to happen, but I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad I'm on this road now. Same with the Best of Both Worlds from TNG, right? Where we've set up the Borg, we know stuff's going to happen with them, but TNG's TNG, where you can just have seasons of none of those big things happening like that. But then Best of Both Worlds comes on, and you immediately know it's a big deal when it comes on, but you're a little bit surprised, like, oh my god, we're actually going to do stuff with the Borg. Oh my god, Picard's become a Borg? Whoa. The long Twilight Struggle was more of a satisfaction in terms of they did it. They've been meticulously crafting and setting this up and putting all the pieces in place, and here it is. We have this beautiful piece of work. This goes beyond being an episode for Babylon 5, right? We talk about episodes we like Gropos, for instance, is a fun episode, or even Confessions and Lamentations is a great episode, but this, for me, goes beyond just being a really good episode of Babylon 5, but it is a masterpiece for this series. This is what is the apex of Babylon 5? What is the crowning jewel of this series? It's the long Twilight Struggle. You have the Coming of Shadows. That's also one. We have several others that will come down the line. But whenever I think of Babylon 5, this episode is instantly in my mind. Just comes straight away. What do you think?
I agree.
When you think of B5, it's images of Londo's sad face and Jakar's misery and everyone kind of flailing about in like this despair of what to do. And this is a great example of an episode that has all of those things.
And it has all of the set pieces that we know and love. The offices, the chamber, the Zocalo.
Negotiations, space battles, guest spot characters that we've seen before coming back, and of course, seeding of future events to come. Because this isn't just a payoff. This is also a leaping off point. This isn't just we've wrapped things up and now we move on to the next story arc. No, this is we're paying stuff off, but we're also building things up as well.
With this episode, it made me trust the show a lot more because so many things are rewarded, but it's not that sense of we need to chop these things off. It's this story has evolved to this point. And these things are now done, and these things are in the middle, and these things are just getting started. And it's hard to remember sometimes what gets set up in the Twilight Struggle because a lot of the stuff that is set up and ends, I either forget how long it's been going for, or that this is the place where certain things start.
An aspect that I've really come to look at when revisiting B5 is, as a viewer of television, I have very little actual trust in TV shows, more basic enjoyment. Like, I enjoy watching this show. I hope it won't fuck up. I hope it ends. Those type of things. But to have complete trust in the show is actually very difficult for me and for many people. But I remember in the days of watching Game of Thrones, and people were absolutely on board 100%. They believed in everything that was happening, and I felt out of the loop because there were some aspects of it that just it made me not trust the quality of the show.
With it in
the
way that,
but I enjoyed it.
Yes,
but there were elements, and there's many shows like that people love, like Dexter, for instance. And are you noting down that I'm listing shows that in the end did fuck up?
Yep.
There were certain elements where I go, oh, they're not lining up like this. They're not lining up like that. And if you listen to our Star Trek Discovery content, you know that this is a thing that bugs me, because it's not as if I need Star Trek Discovery to wholeheartedly line up with Star Trek canon, but at least line up with yourself. And when I see an episode like this, I know I can see that the writer and the creative team involved, the actors, the director, the cinematographer, everybody knows this world and these characters and the themes, and they aren't betraying that. They aren't letting that down, and I feel secure. It's so joyous to watch a show without any sense of impending doom or mistrust in it. Even though Babylon 5 isn't perfect, Season 5 has many faults to it, and there are obviously going to be crappy episodes and behind-the-scenes things that get in the way that we've already seen, like Talia leaving, for example, and obviously Sinclair not being in the show as well, that are going to be bumps in the road. But to have complete faith in a show is something to praise, and this episode is a keystone in that, in actually looking at B5 and going, oh, I don't have to worry, they know what they're doing. Are there shows like that for you? I mean, how are you like that as a viewer of media? Does that matter to you, having like complete trust in a show?
No, but a lot of the time I watch trash, so I never desire or expect that trust to be built up. The only shows where I have had that are shows that I've watched because of you. The three of them being Babylon 5, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul.
So not Gilmore Girls.
No.
Gilmore Girls let you down. You've actually said in the past that the revival almost makes you never want to watch the entire thing again.
No, I can't go back. I've tried and I've watched a couple of episodes after watching A Year in the Life, and I just don't enjoy it the same way.
Right? It's easy though, isn't it, for that to happen, where we often talk about in our lives, people talk about the ending or revivals of shows tainting the wonder that you had with them previously. But
Cough, Picard.
Cough, Star Trek Picard. Doing that was TNG for me. Stop it, Star Trek Picard. Please stop. Please stop. But even though Crusade and The Legend of the Rangers and The Lost Tales exist, they haven't crushed my love for B5 because we have episodes like The Long Twilight Struggle, which, let's get into it. This is a big episode. There's multiple things going on, but let's start off with one of the major hitters, G'Kar. He's going through a lot of stuff.
He got demoted.
He gets turned into just plain old citizen G'Kar. We start off with him in his quarters talking to William Morgan Shepherd as a Narn.
His uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I fully appreciated this on any other rewatch, but the fact that mirrors Londo's journey with his nephew back in season 1.
Oh, with Via's. That was Via's. Oh, wait. In the first episode.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, Londo's worried that he's going to lose his nephew. And G'Kar ends up losing his uncle in this one.
That's brutal. We've mentioned in our Soul Hunter discussion a lot about William Morgan Shepherd, but one of the trivia points being that he was the runner-up to play G'Kar. So this is the closest we'll ever get to seeing what a non-character played by William Morgan Shepherd could have been in this show if it was in there. Like, here he is doing it. And I've said it before, but I could have totally seen him play G'Kar. He would have been a lot more stern, but I could totally see it.
It would have been different. And Andreas brings something very specific to the role.
Height is one of the things he brings. William Morgan Shepherd, the little Narn. He's a little Narn. He's a little boy next to G'Kar, but he's his uncle. He's a little old man. But it was great to see that clearly the casting people and JMS and co loved William Morgan Shepherd enough not only to give him the Soul Hunter role, which is a very memorable performance and character, but to then bring him back and to have him be G'Kar's uncle. I doubt that was by accident, considering that this guy's history with this series was he auditioned to be G'Kar and impressed them enough to be the second choice. I don't think it is by accident that they made him his uncle. This is just a little wink and nod for those in the know and for the actor to play. But what's happening in the scene, Rachel? What's going on between the uncle and G'Kar? Because there's a lot of exposition here.
G'Kar is finding out the truth about the war, that they're actually losing much worse than the Kari is trying to play it off as. And they're going all in on one attack against the Centauri to try and destroy their supply lines to make it like not worth their time to continue the war or not be able to because they won't have access to the artillery. Artillery.
And they're having to change up their tactics. So they're doing this big strike because it would be an unexpected tactic on their part because the Centauri know their maneuvers and know their strategies at this point so well. They're crushing them, so they need to shake things up. And to get this fleet going, they're going to have to divert some of it away from the homeworld, leaving the homeworld momentarily unguarded or with very minimal guarding. Skeleton crew that can easily get rolled over. But hey, the Centauri won't know about that, so it will be perfectly fine. Cut to the Centauri know exactly what's going on. That was so awesome. The script is constantly having countermeasures against itself, specifically when it comes to the Narn and the Centauri, where the Narn here's the thing and it's going to work out well. Cut to the Centauri know exactly what this thing is and they've already determined their plan to win. And cut back to the Narn scrambling and fighting over each other, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. Marvelously done. But one of the aspects that I thought was quite interesting was we covered knives. And in that episode of Knives, that episode of Knives, the planet, the big battle that his friend fought at, that was this heroic thing, was at was Gorash 7, and the Gorash planets are the ones that the Narn are going to go after in this attack. And I thought that was a nice little callback. I thought that was a neat little detail, that this once former glorious battle and capturing of this planet or this system of planets is now being used in this episode. And to see that the Centaurum are just willing to, we're just going to leave it. You can use your shadow friends to protect it, but we're going to go ahead and take the Narn homeworld directly.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done it that the same way if Londo had said no. Reefer was betting on it.
But he had already put things in motion because he's that confident that Londo will bend. But I love that it just...
Well, his dealings with Londo up until this point have suggested that.
Yeah, but he's also played Londo over and over and over again. Londo enters his scene by saying, well, I've already lost a friend because of all of this. How many others will have to happen, Reefer?
I love the way that Reefer is like stroking the Emperor's throne and sits down in it. It's just glorious visual storytelling. And the actor is just the right degree of hamminess for me.
I have good news. The war which began 6 months ago is about to end sooner than any of us could have hoped. And you, Londo Mollari, will be the architect of our victory.
We managed to get Dr. Franklin woven into this episode somehow.
Jakar gets called into Medbay to get a message delivered to him by Dr. Franklin, who was passing on a warning of sorts.
Intel. Because of all the refugees that the Narn are getting some intel because of all the refugees that Babylon 5 is getting from the Narns, and this recent batch had people who had survived and been let go from this one area, and all of this chatter is happening because the Centauri are acting a little differently.
They have this pattern of like going in and securing the area and destroying it, and then they leave. But they hadn't locked everything down.
Hence these refugees are here.
Yes. So Jakar's just like, obviously they have something planned.
And they want to know the defenses of the homeworld.
Yep.
Rather urgently, though.
Rather urgently. It was a different kind of questioning. And Jakar can't talk to this Narn because this Narn is now dead. But he tries to go back and get in contact with his uncle and warn him, but his uncle's like, it's too late to turn back. It's too late to turn back.
There's no choice.
And then they get fucked over by some shadow ships.
What did you think?
take their time with it, by the way.
That was funny. We'll get to the
they
battle.
were playing with them.
Yeah, they fucked him up real good. We'll get to the battle. But what did you think of Franklin being used to...
Makes sense.
I
I
felt...
like it.
That was actually quite an emotional scene for me on this rewatch because we've been seeing Franklin having to deal with, on the front line, the repercussions of this war. And here he is, again, sticking his neck out and doing the right thing, seeing the horrors and injustice. And instead of just brushing this to the side or saying, this isn't my war, this isn't my place, this isn't my role or responsibility, or I can only do so much, like Delenn and Sheridan have been, he tells G'Kar what's going on because it's obvious that they're going to make a big move and that this is Franklin's way of trying to help sway the tide of the war. And it's just heartbreaking.
Also, you don't need to see the scene with Franklin and the Nine because you know what Franklin's like at this stage. You know, the nasty subplot with Frozen Lady aside.
Yeah.
You get the feeling that this was like this man's or this Nine's dying wish. And of course Franklin's going to pass it on. Not only because it will potentially help the Nine and save lives because that's like Franklin's sacred duty is to do that. Like that's part of what he sees as his entire life's purpose. But also because he's honorable.
Yeah, and he's a good man. Franklin's a good man. He has problems like all of us do, but he's a good person. I thought that John C. Flynn III directed this, who's the DP, the cinematographer for Babylon 5. And so when he directs episodes, they have a certain look to them. And since this episode is big, it's grand in scale, he does something very ingenious here to ratchet up the tension, to ratchet up the stakes, to make you really feel the hit and the punches of every moment, which is, and he does this a lot, even with episodes like Soulmates that he directed, but here it's used to perfection, which is tight shots, intense close-ups, characters standing right next to each other, right in each other's faces, and you can see that with the Dr. Franklin scene. It's actually really striking. The minimal amount of music, the atmosphere, the quiet talking, the intensity of the actors is all great, but the direction, the framing of the shot in that conversation underlines the seriousness of what is being delivered in the script. If you just read it, you go, oh, right, it's an exposition scene, blah, blah, blah. And it's like a nice little character dynamic where this character's helping another and this character's going to do something with that information. But the shot of just, they're right next to each other. And of course you could say, well, of course they would. They're sharing private information with each other, so you're going to do that. But if you watch the episode, John C. Flynn III just... a lot of scenes, intense close-up, characters standing right next to each other, and it gives you this sense of claustrophobia when you're watching it. That uneasiness is just broiling up as you're giving this episode a go. You sense that, right, when you're looking at it?
Yeah, it is a very distinctive episode in its style, and you really get a sense of how tight Babylon 5 is feeling at the moment. That level of tension. Because it is like nobody has anywhere left to move. No one can go anywhere. They're all on their paths. And they're being pushed forward.
I don't want to panic anyone, Ambassador, but I thought you should know.
Yes. Thank you, Doctor.
The spaceship battles, we got to really praise the B5 crew because, yes, the CG it's not up to snuff from modern standards, but as a fan of the genre, I always wished as a kid that there was always more spaceship battles and that there was creative spaceship battles, and B5 delivers on that if you're into it. This battle between the Narn cruisers and the shadow ships, if I can nerd out for a moment here, is my type of shit. As soon as a shadow ship shoots out a little ball, and then that little ball separates into many little spidery ships, I lose it. I always go, okay, look, the CG is 90s CG. Don't give a fuck. That is awesome. And a little piece of what makes that awesome is there's this little musical sting, I don't even know how to replicate it, but there's this little musical sting that plays when the ball is shot out, and then when it does go and separates off. And that musical moment is mwah.
Like, for me, I don't stop and take notice of it in that way that you do. But it serves its function and it does it really well. I don't really stop to critique the CG because I'm like, yeah, it's Babylon 5. It was made in the 90s.
And a low budget, and yeah.
It's communicating effectively the message of the scene. And it looks pretty cool doing it.
There's all these little details I love. The Narn cruisers, after getting fucked up a bit, they team up on one shadow ship. They start shooting and pinpointing their lasers on one of the shadow ships, and it lops off one of its little legs, I guess. And you see blood spewing out of it to really give you the knowledge that it's this organic thing. And after they completely get destroyed, the Narn, and I love how they get destroyed. There's one gets cut in half and it looks amazing with the big purple laser cutting it, and these Narn ships are big too. That's the thing, they're big ships, they're not small, and the shadow ships are even bigger than them, but not too much bigger. It's this great sense of scale and weight that you get. But I love that when they're trying to escape, the shadow ships just destroy not the ships themselves, but the jump points, which we have been established so well in this universe. We know what that means. Just think about that, Rachel, huh?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, they're toying with them. They are just straight up toying with them. Because we know the shadows have the ability to just cut through those cruisers.
They can just blast them out of the sky.
No matter how fucking big they are, we know that their tech is better than the Narns. So they are toying.
They humiliate them.
Toying with them. Humiliating them. Letting them, like, damaging them enough that they know that they're in deep shit, waiting long enough for them to open up the jump points.
Yep.
Then destroying the jump points, and then slowly destroying each of the Narn ships.
When the Narn shoot out an energy mine and it just highlights how many of them are still cloaked or not visible, and then they open up and they're like, no, we're here. Just, why were they cloaked in the first place? Like, once one of them was already there, why not just all go in? No, it's just this dick move. I love this actual sense through CG, people. This is just through visuals and CG. You get a personality of the shadows. It's not just the big
fuckers,
animals or monsters. There's a tactic and a sense of play with them, and the cherry on top. Perfection. This is what I think of when I think of Babylon 5 spaceship battles, because we get many of them. After it's all said and done, a shadow ship comes up and grabs the one that got injured and helps it like it's wounded, and they're helping it, and then they join together, and then they fly off into the stars and disappear. it's this little personality trait given there that they don't need to give, but that they do. And I've thought about it ever since I watched it as a kid. Just that little thing right there gives me so much about them, because it's not, in a way, it removes the kind of mythical quality to them in a good way, where before it was, they're just these Deus Ex Machinas that can come in and wipe things out and do whatever, but now this one's been injured and the other one's helping it. It just adds this almost human quality to it, this vulnerability, this sense of, I don't know how to describe it, but every time I see that shadow ship just absorb the other one and fly away, it gives me a smile, to say the least. And another trick that John C. Flynn III uses, and B5 uses a lot as well, especially in this and The Coming of Shadows, is the intercutting. We cut from G'Kar in a room praying that his people are going to be okay, that his uncle's going to be okay, that it's all going to work out. And we're cutting to them being massacred one by one by one. And as it's happening, the candles in G'Kar's room is going out until the very end, in which they're all gone and his homeworld is getting bombed back to the Stone Age, and he puts out the final candle. And you can tell he has this, I don't know how, but there's this sense from him that he knows that it's not good. That's at least my reading of it.
Yeah. Which makes sense, because G'Kar is a deeply spiritual person. So you do get that sense of he's aware of the shift.
Yeah. It's absolutely fucking brutal, to say the least.
Yeah.
Because it's it, right? His entire life has been for this not to happen. That's his entire life. His entire life is for the Centauri not to do this. That's all his goal has been. Everything else is secondary. His whole entire thing is, like he said in the ISN episode, right? Never again. And this episode is saying, fuck you, G'Kar, it's happening again. That is a huge thrust of the emotional weight of the story. Is you can watch this on its own, right? And you still get a lot out of it. But watching this in reference to everything we've seen up until now, it's
another level. It's another level.
It breaks your heart, because obviously you care for a character whose people are going to now be oppressed. But to know who G'Kar is, that this is the central driving thing of his entire character, is for this never to happen again, for his people to be happy and free, even though he's misconstrued that as eradicating the enemy.
And dominating others the way that they were dominated.
Yeah. At the thrust of it all, it is he just wants his people to be free and to never go through that again.
We have no choice but to surrender.
What about our people here?
I don't know. It will depend on the terms of the surrender. With luck, the Centauri will be feeling generous. If not...
Either way, I'll return home on the next shuttle. I should be there.
No, if you come back here, you will only be killed. You are the only one of the Kari who is still safe.
I should be with my family.
I understand how you feel. If you want to save them, you have to listen to me.
Not only when G'Kar gets the message from Nan and he's told not to come back there.
Oh, yeah.
That visibly breaks him.
Mm.
It breaks him. And you see how scared he is. And how little he's feeling. And the way that comes through when he has to go ask for sanctuary. It's brutal. it is brutal to see such a commanding presence.
Such a proud person.
Be so small.
And it must bite so much for him to have to ask one of these Earthers to do it, to help him. And especially someone like Sheridan, who he's asked for help in the past and hasn't been able to provide it.
He can't fight this, which is his instincts. Even though we are seeing him work against that, we know that that is what he's been trained to do. That's why he wants to go back to Narn.
Oh, yes.
He wants to be there. He wants to fight. He wants to be part of that resistance again to get the Centauri off his homeworld. But instead, he has to go to Sheridan and he slinks in there the body language of G'Kar. Those eyes.
And the way he presses his chin into his throat, because this is truly embarrassing. Like, it's not just embarrassing, but it would be a level of humiliation for him. But he has to do it because, as we've seen, and we will very much continue to see, G'Kar is learning that there's more to leadership than what he's been doing before. There's more to being a representative of your people than what he was doing, which was backroom dealings and maniacal plans and fucking over other people. He's having to restrain those urges. He's having to take sanctuary on Babylon 5 because his life is actually worth it. His uncle even mentions it, that perhaps his role as ambassador on this ship will be more important than being a general, than being out there on the line shooting a gun or flying a spaceship. And it is. It is. It's a pivotal place to be. And to take sanctuary is obviously a great political play as well, because the Centauri can't get him off of there. And so he gets to stay there, and his presence as the final member of the Kari is a silent but deathly fuck you to what the Centauri are doing. The fact that he is still out there free and able to do stuff is a big middle finger to the Centauri. But I have often had a tug-of-war in my brain about the actual scene of him taking sanctuary, because then we have the speech. We have the council room scene, and a big thrust of that is Sheridan standing up saying, he's already asked for sanctuary. And there's always this little part of my brain that has a disconnect with it, because it's like, yeah, we saw the scene. But obviously I know what's happening there. But at the end of the day, have the scene, because look at Andreas Katsoulis fucking act his heart out with saying very little. When I saw that sanctuary scene, another thing that I'm really loving on this rewatch, and I have on many, but thanks to watching The Gathering, I'm really, really, really noticing how people like Andreas Katsoulis or Peter Jurasik or Mira Falan have learned so well to play in the silence, to play in the quiet instead of the loud and the over the top. Because obviously they have all of those things, but seeing G'Kar's face, as you said, those eyes, as he quietly asks for sanctuary and he's quivering his lips like he is about to break right then and there, but he's having to play it. He's still having to maintain that composure. That hits all the more than him being this loud, flailing, over-the-top villain or this very dialogue-heavy portrayal that we saw in the early days of the show.
Captain Sheridan, I've been instructed by my government to come to you and ask for sanctuary.
I'm loving William Forward's performance as Lord Reefer. I did not expect Lord Reefer to become one of my favorite characters upon this rewatch. As we go through each rewatch of B5, there's always a character that I'm hoping to like, and it sometimes happens, but then there's characters that I don't expect to gravitate towards, and then it just happens. And Reefer was not on my list, but
Talia was.
I cannot keep my eye off of this guy. He is just so entertainingly evil. And his brand of corruption that he brings to this story is so good, because Mr. Morden is the mafia guy. Hey, I'll make a deal, and he's like the obvious devil. But Lord Reefer is Londo, but without a soul, without a moral compass to him. And he's standing right in front of Londo saying, join me. Come on, let's go see the non-homeworld get bombed. Because isn't that what you've always wanted? And it makes you question Londo, because Reefer's this mirror character. He's this dark mirror to something that we've seen Londo be throughout the entire show. Because throughout the entire show, from The Gathering onwards, he has talked about all of these horrendous things that he would like to do, this renaissance of power, but he's never been actually willing to back it up. But then you have someone like Lord Reefer, who's the exact same type of guy, but he's happy to back it up. What do you think about that? What do you think about Lord Reefer in this episode and upon this rewatch, especially as someone as a parallel to Londo?
He's a piece of trash. He's unabashedly a piece of trash. And I don't even know. There's this statement that I'm sure that we've used before and is fairly commonly used. The best villains often think that they're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Reefer doesn't care whether he's doing the right thing or not. He cares about getting more power.
He's amoral.
That is it. That is it. For him, is it, will this get me more power? Will this not get me more power? What are the costs of it? Doesn't fucking matter. Which make him a very interesting villain. Because, like you say, there's those comparisons that we draw between those two characters and the way that they interact with each other and also alter each other, but in that one way, like that one-way direction. Reefer changes Londo. Londo does not change Reefer. Well, no, I'll take that back.
No, Londo makes Reefer worse. Stronger.
That was what I was gonna say. Because Londo ends up giving Reefer what he wants, but also the tools that Reefer needs. If the shadows weren't in connection with Londo, Reefer's big plays, massive plays like murdering the Prime Minister after the Emperor's death, and now this, which we do get the sense that he is the puppet master.
Yeah.
At the Centauri court.
Yes. Like he mentions how he's already talked to the generals and they've already set this up. Londo, you can't let us down. He uses peer pressure tactics to get Londo to commit atrocities because
war crimes.
Londo is that easy to turn for him because he knows how
exactly
to pressure him, and because
what
Londo has inadvertently, unwittingly opened the floodgate for Reefer to take all of this power, and because Reefer has all of this power and all of this prestige and is playing the game, Londo has to play it with him, and Reefer's pushing him to do this, and he doesn't know he knows better, but he doesn't actually act on it. Reefer comes across as as a small fish to begin with. That's what's really awesome about him. He comes across as a small fish, and before you know it, you realize, oh, he was a fucking snake the entire time. He was always a creepy, slimy motherfucker. But when you get to this episode... You didn't
realize how dangerous he was.
When you get to this episode, it is this guy not only knows what the right thing is, he doesn't care what the right thing. It's ink on a page. I, like you, Londo, have wanted a renaissance of power. I have wanted the naan at my
take it.
I want the naan at my feet, and I want to be in the royal court being the head honcho.
I want this to be my chair that I'm sitting in.
Yes.
I don't want to just get to sit here. I want it to be mine.
And the paralleling and what makes him great as a mirror to Londo is we, the audience, see Londo struggle and actually have we see Londo struggle, we see him have regrets, we see him cautious and we see him afraid, we see him displeased, we see all of these emotions that tell us that he has a soul, but he's giving it away, while Reefer, he doesn't have any of that.
We see the opposite in Jakar of we see him with those same emotions, but he reaches inwards for solace.
Yeah, and he actually does the right thing.
Yeah, he does the right thing. He follows his orders. He protects himself.
He has choices. Londo is always about, I have no choice. He believes he has no choice here. Reefer has given him no choices. The Naan have given him no choices. I guess I'll do this thing, but it's the last time. I swear it. Of course it isn't. The scene in which they're in that war room area, the lighting, the spotlighting on both of them is amazing. Really glorious to see. And them discussing how they are not only aware of the Naan plan and how they're going to take them out and destroy them, but then how they are going directly to the Naan homeworld, that Reefer isn't fucking around. We're going to end this conflict. And again, I have to turn back around, and it makes you really appreciate that JMS told you from day one that these nostalgic, romantic views that Londo has had about imperialism and warmongering is actually quite bad. Because we liked Londo, right? In season 1, he was a funny guy. He had no power to actually do the things he said.
He couldn't even win at gambling.
Yeah, and he has
He's just an old, washed-up drunk.
And he's funny, and he has an accent, and he likes to have sex, and he's a nice enough guy. You could get him to do what you want with enough convincing, and yeah, sure, he has high emotions and wants to kill Jakar.
But he's not a bad person.
Yeah, he is. And these bad things, they're kind of funny and kind of washed out because of what he is as a character. But then you come to this episode and many episodes in season 2, and it's no longer cute. It's no longer excusable, is the thing.
Mr. Garibaldi is no longer his friend.
Yeah, friendship with Londo ended. Friendship with Jakar started. And you get the scene in which Reefer tells him, we are going to use mass drivers. We are going to bomb them. We're going to flatten them down. And we need you to get your associates to take out the Naan here so that we can do that. And Londo resists and he resists and resists, but then he gives in. And he's damned. From that moment, he is damned. He has committed atrocities throughout the show already. He's already killed many people, but
he's been responsible for the death of thousands.
The Coming of Shadows is when he was damned, but here, as an audience, and he himself knows, there's no turning back. There's properly no turning back now. is it the image of B5? Him
The
on that ship?
reflection. Yeah. Yeah.
His face looking at what he wanted.
I don't think anything can top it. And we've surely referred to this before, how JMS has said that, like, at the heart, or if he had to take out everything but one storyline, Londo would remain. The tragedy of Londo Mollari is Babylon 5 in so many ways. And that image shows that so clearly, so brilliantly. You can't not. You can't not recognize that as so iconic.
It's hard to even talk about the scene because if you've watched the show, you know it. It's perfection. It is
burned
a perfect
into your brain.
It is burned into your brain. His face, the image of seeing Nand being bombed with these mass drivers, these machines that just throw chunks of rock at them and just cruel. It's a cruel way to win.
You understand
There's no nobility.
completely why these are outlawed.
Because there's no real noble way to win a war, of course, especially if you're doing it through conquest. But even then you think, well, come on, there are many atrocious ways, and this is one really, truly atrocious way. And I love, we all talk about his face, but there's a brilliant move here where we're looking out at the ship. We look at, we're getting closer. One of the asteroids flies by the camera and there's a cut to it even closer. We're getting tighter. The expansiveness of this conquest, of the spectacle of the war ending and the CGI stuff, that's no longer in the frame anymore. We are going right in on what's actually important, which is Londo seeing all of his choices lead to this and seeing the absolute ruin of himself. He's destroyed these people, but he himself, looking through the reflection and the darkness consuming his face, that says it all. It says it all. Peter Jurassic's face is the classic I am death, I've become death, destroyer of worlds. It's a point of no return. And I've always got to ask, I ask this of new people, but obviously I got to ask it because it's you and I. When you saw this, what did you think for Londo? Even before we get to the speech scene, before we even get to him being a even bigger, like a proper prick, when you saw this happen, what did you think of the character and what did you think of what you're going to be like with him going forward?
I thought, he's gone. He's gone. He can't be part of the show still after this. Like, he cannot still be an ambassador after he's done this. Right? Surely he just goes back and he's part of the court and, like, this is the end for Londo. That's what I thought the first time I watched it. I was like, how can you keep a character around that's done this?
When I watched it that first time, and even still, all these years later, all of these viewings later, the air just leaves me. I almost cry because it is just such an impactful thing, and it's really complex because, I thought he would stay throughout the whole show, but I just didn't know what they were going to fucking do because he is a war criminal. He is a mass murderer. He is responsible for so much evil. And I knew there just comes points in shows like with Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or this or so on and so forth where you take a character and they go beyond that line where they can have a happy ending. They can't have a happy ending. I knew that. I knew for sure, no matter where they took Londo,
Adira is not coming back into his life.
Because
Adira, he's not going to end up emperor and married to Adira.
Because B5 somehow successfully does this. They managed to turn Londo around and make us like him still, and make us like him and or like him again. But the idea of this character after this event ever having an ending that is happy would have been a betrayal. And because this episode as did many episodes, made me trust that the show knew what it was doing, I just knew that this guy will have a bad ending. And he does, in a glorious way. But I didn't know what they were going to do. I was... my jaw's on the floor right now, looking at this scene. Whenever I want to feel great senses of emotion, I can just whack on that. Because there's so many emotions that it conjures up because of real world imagery as well. Because we understand what real world horrors of this of great magnitude look like, and the people who are responsible for them, and it's just, as I said, this is a reason why the episode is a masterpiece.
Yep.
His face. This once funny character being taken to the darkest place that you possibly could take them.
He changes over time. In his first year, he had this big purple coat, very long, very flashy, not really very serious. The hair was always going in 5 different directions at the same time. Over time, the hair gets more solid, it gets more firm looking. We went to a black jacket this year, you'll notice, which is a more serious color, a little bit of blood red jewel there on the throat. Wanted him to look more like a fighter, more like a person to be taken seriously. And that evolution goes on throughout the course of the series, going from buffoon to a very serious character.
We see that face. We see it. But the other characters don't.
No. That's
we see
for
the private.
audience.
We see the private. Yeah, we get all these nuances, but the others don't. Not all the time. And then, because he's this idiot, Londo, because he's this stubborn, trapped man.
Old fool.
He's trapped. He has to embrace being the tyrant, being the monster, being the hate-filled person he is deep down. And he does it. And he storms back onto Babylon 5 with this absolute whirlwind energy, all black outfit. He's got his cape.
Changes into purple for that council meeting.
Garibaldi's scared of him. We've already been told this in the show, but Jerry Doyle doesn't get too much to do in this episode, but when he does, he's fantastic.
No, when he's greeting Londo at those bays, oh boy.
Yeah, he's disgusted by him. Truly disgusted.
Yeah.
But Londo doesn't care.
Nah.
That's beneath him at this point. He has a list of things he's got to go through.
He's been given his marching orders and he's going to do them.
He's playing a role. He's got his mask on, as he said in Born to the Purple. And then we get the council scene. It's hard talking about B5 episodes like this because the scenes, the moments, the performances almost feel like they go beyond analytical breakdowns and reviews and critiques because they speak for themselves. The entire scene speaks for itself. You watch it, you can't help but feel something. That's the power of it. It's eerily silent, loud bursts of emotion, underpinning of sadness throughout the entire thing because everybody in the scene is miserable.
Yes.
Everybody's miserable.
Everybody.
Londo has gotten what he wants, but he's fucking hollow and miserable and angry. Jakar is obviously devastated. Delenn is tearing up and a sad bystander, and Sheridan is trying to do the right thing and trying to do the Babylon 5 thing, but it's failing. he's managed to get a win by the fact that
You might
Londo,
say our last best hope
for peace failed. He gets a win because they get to give sanctuary to Jakar, but all the other things he doesn't get any wins on. The list of the decrees that the Centauri have are...
Oh, fucking hell. Like, just, oh my fucking God. 1 Centauri life worth 500.
including the perpetrator's own family.
500 none.
Yeah, and whenever I hear that, I think of the scene in which Jakar brings that up, and the way Andreas delivers that
The
line
elevator.
in the elevator. It's just
Heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking.
it's heartbreaking here
'Cause it's
because
just like,
it's in the wake of it all. But Jesus,
Yeah.
and obviously. All of the Kari are being rounded up for trial for their war crimes, quote unquote war crimes, and they're obviously getting murdered and executed, and he wants Jakar. This is another aspect too, is he's always had this personal thing against Jakar from episode 1, right? Because Jakar is his adversary, he knows he's going to be killed by Jakar, but even though Londo has all of these intricacies and nuances and regrets and foibles that we have seen, we also see here the thing that we know from him, which is he wants Jakar. He wants to fucking kill it. He wants to get one up on this guy, and he's using this.
He wants to change his own destiny.
Yeah, and
I think that's in the back of his mind as he does that. I think.
And he gets relish in the moment when he walks up and he says that Jakar's no longer a part of this council. He needs to
getting to call him Citizen
Jakar. He's absolutely having an evil ball doing it, and that since he is the last member of the Kari, he has to be taken in for trial.
Last member free.
Yeah, and Sheridan stepping in and saying, nope, he's under our protection, and we didn't sign that treaty, nor did Earth. In fact, we don't give a fuck what you have to say about that. You don't have any jurisdiction here, Londo. And the petulance from Londo. He's almost like an angry child in this scene.
Yeah.
And he shouts that Jakar has to leave. He has to leave now. When you look at B5, I know we've watched the show fucking millions of times, but I still, when he shouts like that, I get a chill down my spine because, again, I've watched the show many times. There's that element of, I don't expect this from this character. Like, for you to sink this low.
Yeah.
For you to be this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
JMS follows it all up with his best speech in Babylon 5 that he's ever written. I think that's fair to say. Jakar stands up and he gives this impassioned speech, and it's beautiful. I almost cry every time that it's said. What really breaks it for me, even before he starts speaking, is him slowly lifting up from the table to get up. Because you don't know what he's going to do. Even if you've watched it and you know he's going to give a speech, there's this uncertainty there. And the music is elegant, and the
writing that line.
Reactions of every single person in the aftermath of Londo's scream.
Everybody
and then
in the room being captivated by him as well.
Just him standing up, it gets my eyes watering before he even opens his mouth. And then he opens his mouth and he gives one of the many great Jakar speeches, if not the greatest Jakar speech, in which he bestows many of the values that we'll see in Babylon 5 throughout, in which the need for freedom is a powerful thing, and that you won't be able to oppress us through sheer force of arms alone, and whether it take us 1,000 years, we'll be free, and we'll teach you this lesson again. That's the thing, again. We'll teach it to you, and I mean, what do you have to say about it?
I don't think I can say anything more. Like, it's just beyond. It's just so good. And I can't break it down any more than that right now, any more articulate, because it is just so simple in its beauty. Because it's a moment that defines the characters.
Yeah.
It solidifies the path that Londo is choosing. It solidifies the path that Jakar has chosen, and how that's different to what he has in the past. And Sheridan, Delenn, and Kosh.
Oh, yeah.
Kosh is just there and silent.
Yeah, even Kosh is beside himself.
But he turns up to that council meeting.
Yeah, even the Vorlons thought it was a crime against sentience to use the mass drivers.
Yeah.
Looking at this in comparison to the Coming of Shadows, when it comes to Jakar, in that he broke, that the events of the Coming of Shadows ruined him. He was a true mess. He was willing to die. But he
absolutely
here in this episode, which is 10 times worse for him, he's grown. It is obviously breaking. It's obviously broken him in a way.
He is destroyed. But he doesn't choose the easy thing of lashing out.
But
he chooses his people
and hope
above himself. And hope. He because at his heart, he knows what he says about freedom is true.
Yeah. In that speech, it perfectly illustrates an element of strength that Jakar has learned and will continue to learn throughout. Because before, his reaction was external, violence, strong emotions, and obviously to take out the problem. But here, he's learned strength is something else. It can be something else. And whether it is that they have to wait 1,000 years, the power of freedom is truly something else.
There is also something else there that I wanna say. It isn't just that is what Jakar needs to say. That's the message that he wants to deliver. It's also what Jakar needs to hear in that moment. It's not just for everybody else's benefit and for him to have a final dignified moment in the chamber. He needs to remind himself of that.
No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We will teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free.
Londo and Jakar are always on the opposite side of one another. Always. There's rarely any time where they're on the same page, let's just say. And here the episode ends. Jakar has gone through all of these atrocities. Like, Jakar has gone through all of these things. And he ends the episode with a sense of hope. He's shaken the hand of Sheridan, even though the last time he shook someone's hand, they were at war 24 hours later. And he ends it with him grasping that hand and smiling and thinking, yes, things can be better. Londo, on the other hand, is got his hand on his face, horrified.
Fucking
alone, watching the TV, realizing what's going to happen further and that everything is bad.
He fucked up.
It is truly great that Jakar went through all of this and still can have a sense of purpose and a soul and meaning to life, while Londo, he has seen what he has done, and he's not happy about it. He is truly sad about it, but he's on the road. He can't get off of it. He decided that he can't get off of it because he has no choice, except for he does, and he's made all the wrong choices. The war's over. Jakar is no longer ambassador. The Shadows are going to become a bigger deal. The Rangers are now under partial control of Sheridan.
The conspiracy of light
grows, and Dral is an ally because Dral is in this episode as well. Everything's changed. That is one of the things too that on a first viewing I just didn't expect that.
The before and the after.
Yeah, you just don't expect that. Oh yeah, I'll just whack on this episode and everything's changed again. We already did that with the Coming of Shadows.
2 episodes left of this season. What is this?
Heroes and a villain, character dynamics are all turned upside down, and our perceptions of them are completely and radically changed forever for the entirety of the series. And it is great. It is weird to me that there is a Dral plot at the center of this all, because if I have a critique with the episode, it is I do not give a single fuck about what's happening on the Epsilon 3. I don't give a shit about any of that.
But,
it's not bad.
Sheridan and Delenn go on a road trip.
A romantic road trip because they're smiling at each other.
Yes.
And Dral is young and...
It's another step in their relationship.
It's another step, and Dral is young.
Going away for the weekend.
Yeah. Dral is young and firm. New actor because the old actor just couldn't do the role.
I think
he was committed to another thing.
Yeah.
Or something. I can't remember the exact circumstances.
I thought it was that he was busy being on Broadway.
Yes, that's it. Probably busy being on Broadway. And so we have a new actor stepping in. And the thrust of it is Dral is willing to be an ally to use the resources of Epsilon 3 to help in the conspiracy of light and the war to come.
The allies, the allyships
that
are going to be building, and
the first one. And then there's going to be more.
First one of many.
And of course, the little sting that Zathras is somehow involved in the Dral situation. This was... I remember as a kid, I leapt out of my seat because I love Zathras. So it was great to hear Zathras again. And that I didn't even connect that dot because how could I? But now this is laid here. It got my mind racing, and I was just wanting more Babylon 4 escapades to happen. And I was truly devastated that there was none in season 2 outside of minor mentionings of it, that there was no big Babylon 4 episode in season 2. But this was a little treat for me because I love my boy Zathras, so we got a shout out to him. But we got a new actor of Dral, so that means we have to do our spotlight section in which we talk about an actor that appeared in an episode of Babylon 5, go over what we thought of them in the episode, what we know them from, any interesting facts, and we are talking about new Dral, who is played by John Shuck. He has one of those names. It's like, oh, that looks fun written down. How do I say that out loud? Is it just a
just
noise?
Ignore the C
Shuck.
that's after the S.
Shuck. And he's Drowl. Hot take, spicy take.
Yes.
I love his performance. Is it?
Why is that so spicy?
Because it's fucking over the top to the point of alienating you as a viewer.
It's fucking ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous performance, people.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It is not in line with any other performance in the episode.
But it's also
distracting.
Just like,
it is
I'm
distracting.
Just like, this is a man that's been on his own too much.
I love his performance for one simple reason. I'm a simple man. I love that voice.
Boom.
I love that voice. Matt Berry should play Drowl in the reboot. My name is Drowl. I've quoted that line. Maybe top 10 quotes from B5 I use on the reg. Whether it's my name instead or Drowl. But that cadence, that rhythm, that delivery that he gives it makes it memorable. It's a normal line. My name is Drowl. But he says it, my name is Drowl. And it's like, why did he say it like that? Because he's a theater actor, Ryan. Because he's man of Broadway. Because I'm a theater man.
He is Daddy Warbucks.
Of course he is. Of course he is. I love his performance because of his voice. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
On a technical level, if I have to be a scientist here and look at the formula, it doesn't match up with anything else in the episode.
No.
He's distracting.
Yes.
Because he's so bombastic and over the top, but that deep booming voice, it draws me in every time. Every time. When I think of Drowl, I think of this Drowl. Not the first one, who was soft-spoken. That's the thing, too. What do you think about his performance, but to compare him to the previous Drowl?
It feels different. It feels different. I tend to think of them as separate. I don't really bother comparing them much because I'm like, they're doing similar things, but they're very different performances.
Is
and
it a
they're
bad
very
thing?
different roles within the episode as well. Like the first one is like a man who is ready to die and is bored of life. And this one is reinvigorated, literally.
It's like how she remembers him.
Yes.
I do raise my eyebrows up at the fact that they got an actor who's drastically on the opposite end of the previous one, in which I in my brain just, it's a different character to me.
Yeah.
When she says, oh, he's like the Drowl I remember, it's like, no, he isn't.
Drowl I remembered from 30 years ago
No.
that we never saw.
How old is Dylan? But whatever. I love it, but I do think, for me, it's a problem. I just don't believe that it's the same character between the two performers. They don't even try to make him similar in any fashion, and I find it so peculiar because they do with others. Like, new Natoth wasn't that different to old Natoth. It's just she wasn't in it very much. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And I just find him strange, but he's only in this episode and one other. He's in 2 episodes like the other Drowl, but I remember him because he's just so... And also, he's a big guy. Like, he's... Weirdly enough, I'm taller than him, but when I look at Drowl, maybe because of the bone on his head, I think if you told me this guy was like 6'6", I would believe you. He's just got this big presence to him, this larger-than-life look to him that it actually does add to the character, because the character is this larger-than-life sci-fi thing where he's this hologram that's walking around and he fades away. I love the joke, too, when Sheridan's like, hey, wait a minute, and then he fades back in. I thought that was ludicrous. I thought that was... Oh, we have to give a shout-out, though, that in this dramatic episode in which we have characters having this horrific face of seeing war crimes happen, like genocide happen in front of them, we also get some jaunty shower music for Sheridan as he's washing off.
Choices were made.
Still a masterpiece.
Let's talk about the Star Trek connections first up.
He's basically in every Star Trek except for the original series, right? Oh, in TNG. He's not in TNG. No, he's in the original series movies.
TOS movies.
He's a Klingon ambassador in Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 6. He's actually quite prominent in 4.
He was in Deep Space Nine. He
was in Enterprise. He was a Klingon. Surprise, surprise.
And he was also in Voyager and Enterprise.
Yeah, it said Enterprise. He was a Klingon. But he wasn't in the... Well, I guess... Yeah, he wasn't in TNG. If he was in TNG, he technically would have been in original series, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. He missed TNG. Damn, bro. I could have seen him play a Romulan, like an over-the-top Romulan. I could easily see him doing that, but I guess Andreas Katsoulis was too busy doing that. So I guess couldn't get it. Are you familiar with him as an actor? Because I am, because of those Star Trek connections, of course.
And I think I've seen him in a few other things because he is a character actor. I think I'd seen him in the episode of Diagnosis Murder when I took a look at that, and a few other guest spots that he did. Yes,
he is unmistakable because you can tell he has a very recognizable face, but it's the voice. Star Trek movies are what I think of him for, especially because of his voice, and I knew him as that before I saw him as Draal.
His voice isn't in his trademarks,
which is absolutely absurd. Because
it's his gregarious smile.
He does have a brilliant smile,
and I'm like,
he's always smiling as Draal, except for when he's frowning, when he gets really frowny. But I knew him from the Star Trek movies because of that voice. It's kind of recognizable, and he's very over the top. I remember him in Dick Tracy. He's a reporter in that. And again, it's the voice, but his voice matches there perfectly because Dick Tracy is a very heightened, over-the-top film and a period piece movie. So it's going for a very specific thing. And like with other actors with these type of... He has a very old-timey radio voice. So it works in certain contexts like this, like with Dick Tracy.
Yes.
I remember... seeing an episode or two, but not too many. He was in a revival of The Munsters, where he played Herman Munster. He was fine. He wasn't the original guy good, but, it's not a great show, The Munsters today. But, I don't know if you saw this, he was in Murder, She Wrote.
Yes.
None written by JMS. In fact, he was in a season before JMS. Season 8 is when JMS is involved in Murder, She Wrote. He was in season 7. Mm-hmm. So... I don't know if there's any casting overlap there, like the casting people from Murder, She Wrote or the casting people in Babylon 5 or like crossover there, but he was in Murder, She Wrote. And of course, the MASH film.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the MASH movie? Because I know you're a fan of the MASH show.
I've never watched it. And John Shuck.
Yes. You know.
Yeah, I've just got myself... John played Painless Paul Waldowski.
He's a Polish guy.
The virginal army camp dentist. And did you see the fun...
Yes, but you say it. It's a very fun fact.
Apparently, he had the honor...
It's an honor.
...of being the first actor to use the F word in a major motion picture.
So, I did some digging on this man, and on YouTube, I found two very cool things. So, according to IMDb, it seems he has retired from TV and film.
2018 was his last credit on IMDb.
On YouTube, I found a short film that has him in it. He doesn't speak, though, which is the fucking craziest thing. And it's a terrible short film. Just FYI, it's fucking awful. But he's in it, along with one of the chicks from like Mrs. Clown from the Ernest movies. Very bizarre.
Okay.
But he is in it, and that came out in 2019, 2020, so he may still be doing short film projects, and I saw another YouTube video in which he's still doing musical theater, and that video on YouTube was released in late 2020, so he's still he's still at least relatively recently still active in acting scenes, but maybe not IMDb worthy acting scenes. And another thing I saw that I thought was wonderful was he did some celebrity bowling. It was filmed event, celebrity bowling, against Billy Barty, who was a famous dwarf actor, and Dick Cavett, who was fucking terrible at bowling. The fact that Billy Barty was a better bowler than Dick Cavett was fucking hilarious. But guess who John was teamed up with? He was teamed up with an actor we've done a spotlight on, Michael Ansara, a.k.a. Elric the Techno Mage. There you go.
Oh.
There you go. And guess what? I saw the footage. They were wearing some funky 70s clothes, and both John and Michael Ansara both had heads of hair, which they no longer do. Obviously, Michael Ansara is no longer with us, but they were both fucking sexy. They were sexy. I'm just going to say it. They were both incredibly handsome, and Dick Cavett looked like a fucking idiot, and Billy Barty was doing some funny dance moves and made me laugh quite a lot. Billy Barty was also surprisingly good at bowling. Just a little thing. Billy Barty, for some reason, because, you know, he's a little person, he would bowl and the audience would start laughing because the bowl's almost as big as him, ha ha ha. But he was actually really good at bowling. Like, his thing was, because of his height and the way he would throw, the ball would always curve and look like it was going to go in the gutter, but then it would kind of swerve and go perfectly in the center, and he would almost always get, like, most of the pins down, while Dick Cavett could barely fucking get one. Yeah. What a loser he is. Gee whiz. But, yeah, that's a little piece of thing that I found.
There are a few other things that I would like to share. One of them being that he was married twice.
Mm. To the same person?
No, to different people, but he had a son with his first wife.
Cool.
And then after they got divorced, she went on to marry another actor.
Okay.
You want to guess who it was?
Michael Ansara. She saw him at some bowling and thought, that guy's sexy as fuck. And her name was Jeannie from Our Dream of Jeannie. Barbara Felton. No?
No. You want another clue, or you want me to
No. I want to hear it, because that's going to be the best answer I give you.
Okay. It was Leonard Nimoy.
She married Leonard Nimoy?
Yeah. His ex-wife went on to marry Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, okay.
So his son's stepdaddy was Leonard Nimoy.
Wow. Imagine Leonard Nimoy and him talking. They have very distinct voice.
They worked together multiple times.
Hey, do you think that's how... Wait. When did this divorce happen? Because if he was in those Star Trek movies and she was married to him...
I don't know where it is in the timeline.
And she saw Leonard Nimoy on the set as director of 4 and said, oh, wow, I'm going to have to leave John for Leonard Nimoy. Or what? Or did he get a job because Leonard Nimoy's wife was just like, give him work? And Leonard's like, fine, I'll give John some work. I don't know. You got me thinking now. You got me thinking.
I enjoyed reading through his bio. There was just a line that really got me chuckling, which was a sailor on the sly.
Oh, just on the sly.
On the sly.
On the sly is a sailor. On the sly is a snailer. So I said what I said, and I'm not taking it back.
And then there's a quote that I wanted to share.
Say it in his voice.
No.
Rachel, say it in his voice. My name is Troll. They'll have to go 3 miles deep to get what I have, and even then they would not manage to survive such a task.
If you want it done in the voice, you're going to have to do it yourself.
No, you read it.
No, it's just going to be disappointing compared to that. He was quoted as saying, I would much rather play the character roles I do than the leading guy. As long as you're able, you can keep working. Longevity is terrific.
My name is Droll.
It's a yum yum.
Yum yum.
It's a yum yum.
Yum yum.
So, what are we going to be following up a masterpiece with? What is happening next time on Babylon 5?
On the next Babylon 5.
Well, what's happening is episode 21 comes the Inquisitor. Jakar rallies the Narns on the station to uphold the resistance effort against the Centauri. Delenn undergoes a torturous test for her allegiance to Kosh by a bizarre emissary called Sebastian, played by Wayne Alexander. There you go. We did it. Here we are at the end of the episode, and, well, you can follow us on the social media of your choice under YumYumPodcast. You can support the show and get extra bonus content on Patreon, as well as get to be a part of the group Discord on Patreon. We have our discussion of Season 2 of Picard, our discussions on Strange New World, our discussions on many other pieces of media. You can go over to YumYumPodcast on Patreon and support the show. But people, you can also contact us via email. Rachel, what's the email for those who want to drop us a line?
That would be yumyumpod@gmail.com.
There you go. We did it. We're out of here. Jakar had a lot to say in this episode. He gave a speech.
No, but he didn't give us.
What
he
is
didn't
speech?
give us the line that we craved.
If he ended his speech before he walked out solemnly by saying, "Greeting to you," and a tear rolled down his cheek, I would have clapped. But since he didn't, I'm not clapping, but I will say it for him. Good eating to you, Rachel.
Good evening to you, Ryan.
Mr. Cannibal